We saw the first 3 episodes of The Bad Batch. Now we're going to talk about it. Once again, I'm joined by Weber State's own Tim Costello. How are you doing today?
Great. These episodes were wonderful, and I'm excited to talk about them today.
Yes. These are the first 3 episodes of Season 3, Confined, Paths Unknown, and Shadows of Tantus. So we're just going to review it all as like it was a big movie, like all as one big episode for you today. So let's start off with Confined, the first episode. And I had a strange viewing experience because for some reason my Disney Plus, as I started it, it went to episode 2 first.
So
And
strange.
so that was the one that I watched the first. And then
That is so weird.
I watched 10 minutes of episode 3. And then I had to do something and it came back and said, wait a minute, I haven't even started episode 1 yet. So then I went back and I was like, oh, this is making a lot more sense. A lot of the stuff that was referred to in episode 2 and 3 was in episode 1. So that was a strange
sabotaging Vactor's Bad Batch efforts.
Yeah, who was it? Who did it?
Who did it? We're gonna find him.
Nonetheless, I have watched I have watched all 3 episodes now, so now I want to talk about it with Tim, who watched them in actual chronological order, the way you're supposed to.
Disney Plus was not sabotaging me.
Oh man. Well, I want to know, what did you think about this premiere of season 3? You just alluded to that you really enjoyed it, but let's get a little deeper into this first episode, Confined. What'd you think?
Confined was really good. We basically picked up right where we left off in season 2 with with Omega being held captive, and that was really cool. I really like Omega. She's just a really great character in this show. I really liked how she was paired with Crosshair, who is like super negative and doesn't want anything to do with the rest of the Bad Batch, which was a great twist in the first episode.
It's like her opposite, because she is so opposite. She only sees the good in people, really, because she hasn't had that. I think the experiences that Crosshair's had, that like, oh, people betray you, people backstab you, people, like, the world is not a great, the universe, the galaxy is not a great place. So it's like you said, it's great to have those two playing off of each other. So I like that as well.
And seeing them play off of each other is great. Crosshair is another one of my favorite characters in this show. Just because he's had such a fascinating arc, and a little bit of my Bad Batch history is going into this show. I was just expecting, it's just going to be a bunch of clones going on missions, and more of what we saw in the Clone Wars, and seeing like Crosshair basically turn on them and join the Empire was such a huge twist that I absolutely loved. And seeing his conflict with Hunter specifically has been wonderful, and seeing him and Omega pair up in this episode was great. And I also really loved that we got more of the Doctor. What was her name? I can't remember.
The cloner one, or the clone one, because Nala Say is the cloner.
One who is basically who I call Omega's mom.
Yes. Let me look that up. I have not memorized her name yet.
Yeah, I haven't memorized her
Emery
name yet.
Carr? Does that sound
Not
right?
sure.
Emery Carr?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's right.
that's her. Yes.
That's right. It was
Yes.
Emery. You're right. And
Yes.
I really liked, because that was a huge twist at the end of season 2. And every time she talks, I'm like, oh yeah, that is so Omega, and it's so wonderful.
Yes. Which voiced by the same actor.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought she might have been, but I wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I really liked that character, and also I am really loving. I think her name's Lama Say. Lana Say.
Nala Say.
Nala Say. Yeah.
Yes.
There's a Lama Su Kaminoan character, so I'm getting them all mixed up.
Yes. Right. Which I love the Kaminoan design, like that, the classic sci-fi alien, with the big eyes,
Yeah,
big
I've
head.
always loved that. I've always loved that. Like when they showed up in Attack of the Clones, I was like, oh, so they're just aliens. That's cool.
Favorite parts of Attack of the Clones, which is my least favorite
Right,
prequel, but
right,
yeah.
yeah. Me too, me too. But yeah, I like and how she's just like, you know, kind of but like saving Omega, but also betraying the Empire. So yeah, that was
Which
like
I
just
love that
seeing
line. I don't know if it was in the first episode or because they're all blending together for me, but
sure
the line that Nala Se had about I like, "How dare you question my loyalty to
into
science?"
science.
And
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
she's all about. I
Mhm.
love that.
Yeah, that was a favorite line of mine too, because my wife loves science, so that obviously
Yeah.
stuck out to me. Uh, so yeah, and like she's like that's her loyalty is to science, and yeah, it's just such a solid episode. Seeing Omega kind of make that connection with that creature. I can't remember the name of the creature.
Yes, yes. We'll just call it the Hound, the
Yeah,
Space Hound.
I thought it was like that same creature that they all let go in the Last Jedi. That's what
Oh, right, right, right. Like
I
the
initially
Space
thought, but
Horse, which I'm
yeah,
blanking on the
and
name of. Yes.
and I liked that Omega gave the one that she was befriending a name. She gave it the name Batcher. Uh,
Yes, yes.
yeah, which thought was a really nice touch. Just
And you
all
knew
this
it was gonna come back, let it come
Yeah,
back.
yeah, yeah. Especially since the other clone doctor was just like, yeah, these animals are stupid, they're dumb, and how that came back in episode I think it was episode 3,
Yes,
was
I think that
really cool.
yes.
Was really cool. Yeah,
Which not to spoil anything, for later in the episode, but I think Shadows of Tantus, the 3rd episode, was my favorite out of this group.
yeah,
So that was really fun. But I'm right there with you, man. Like it's like everything that you are loving, I am loving about this show.
yeah.
And what's really I think cool about what they're doing right now is retroactively, I think, making the sequel trilogy better and explaining somehow Palpatine returned. Like I think when we're all
Exactly,
done
exactly.
with the Bad Batch, we're gonna know it's gonna make it better. Like we're gonna have more knowledge. And when my son watches this and everything is out at the time, when your sons watch this, it's gonna be like, oh, that knowledge was always there. We always
Yeah,
knew
like,
that that
of
was
course
what.
it's how Palpatine returned because you know they did it here.
Right, right.
Like I'm so glad you mentioned that because it reminded me a lot of the Darth Vader comics that have been
Oh
running
yes.
because
Mm-hmm.
those have a lot of connections to Rise of Skywalker
Right.
as well, and
Yep.
makes that movie better in retrospective, which I
Yes.
appreciate.
Right.
I mean, it's
Yes.
still not a great movie, but uh, but
Yeah.
I appreciate them like making these steps. Like, yeah, this is something that Palpatine had going on, and this is episode 3 territory, so we won't talk about this just yet. But yeah, I really liked that they did that as well.
Yeah, and that's keeping in Star Wars tradition, like, even the original trilogy, all of the kind of the novels that came out and all of the, other materials, which are now legends, all of that stuff kind of enriched the main movies, and we're seeing that here. I think all of the TV shows with Mandalorian, with
Yeah.
Andor, with Bad Batch, it's just lifting up the sequel movies and just kind of filling out, the details. And with the comics,
Mhm.
like you said, those are also just kind of fleshing out this universe. And that's what's great about Star Wars. So I love that this is doing that. Um, but yeah, that was basically confined. I think it was a good first episode, but if we had just gotten that and not these other two, I think
Yeah.
I would have been a little bit less high on it.
That's
So it's
what
good that they put them.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking that as I finished Confined, yes, a couple days ago, and I'm like, I'm so glad that I have 2 more episodes to watch now because like if this is what I've been left with, I'm like, okay, and now I have to wait a week. Oh, awful. And
Yeah,
that's what
right.
Disney Plus has done is like usually like obviously like there's things like well obviously they had to they're doing 2 of these episodes because it's popular and everything But like with WandaVision, I'm so glad that those were 2 episodes, because if it had been left in the first episode, I would have been disappointed. I think Hawkeye and and other shows that they've done, they're very strategic in how, like, okay, like this is gonna leave people on a cliffhanger. It's probably not
Mhm.
best to just release this 1 episode.
Right.
So
Well, also
yeah,
that plays into the difference between episodic, like weekly television versus what we have now, I think, is the binge culture. And we're seeing this with you and I are both watching Avatar The Last Airbender on Netflix, and all 8 episodes were released. And I think there's pros and cons. I actually want to get your take on this in a second, but I think there's
yeah,
pros and cons to each approach. The weekly content, if you're doing it episode by episode, there's a water cooler aspect to it.
yeah,
We have the podcast where we can
mm,
theorize, we can talk about it and kind of let the episode sit for a little bit and we can kind of gather our thoughts. So that I think is the pro of the episodic approach, the weekly approach. The binge approach, the I think the pros of that is you don't have to wait for the next episode. So if you're feeling let down or if you're feeling like, man, I wish I could watch the next episode, you can because the whole season is out. But then to me, the con of that is number one, you lose the water cooler aspect of it. So there's not as big of a I think a cultural impact of it. And then
mhm,
with the you also get the people who are able to watch all the whole season and spoil it for you online. Like they'll immediately are giving you the ending. I noticed that with Avatar, even though I've already watched the animated show, I saw people on Twitter just already saying spoilers immediately. So I think that's kind of like a con. And then also it's almost like a one and done where
mhm,
you're talking about it really intensely for that first week that it's out, but then a month later, nobody's talking about it. Nobody's like
yeah.
so it doesn't have the legs to it. So I'm interested for you, which approach do you like better? Do you like the weekly or do you like the binge?
I'm more of, and I'm really glad that when Disney Plus launched, that they went with the weekly stuff, the weekly release schedule, because like you said,
Yes.
you can talk about it. You can, like, oh, I can't wait for the next episode. We have a podcast like this where we can talk about it and talk about each episode. I think if all 13, I think 13 or 15, I can't remember how many
Yeah,
there are.
15, 15.
15 episodes of the Bad
Yes.
Batch had been coming out, I probably wouldn't have been able to tell you what episode happened when. It would all just be together. And also, we're both busy people. We're
Yes.
both dads. We have spouses, we have jobs, we have all these things that are demanding our attention. I think 1 episode a week helps to kind of like, okay, I just have to watch this 1 episode, and then I can go with the rest of my day. Um,
That's a
and
great point because you're even seeing this now with the animated Avatar: The Last Airbender, where the whole series is out right now.
uh,
But it was a lot easier for me to watch it week to week than it is, "Oh, here's 3 seasons. Have at it, Tim. This is everything all at once." And I think that is a big even with Clone Wars, I saw that where I was watching Clone Wars week to week, and I was having friends and other people come to it later where they were like, "Oh, here's all 5 seasons," or "Here's the whole Blu-ray." But it's a lot more difficult to watch it that is a lot more time commitment than week to week. It's like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. That's a lot more digestible. So
Yeah,
I
it is more
think
digestible. And you can like sit with things that you saw. I mean, I'm seeing it with Avatar: The Last Airbender right now. It's just like I'm like, okay, I got to get to this episode, and then this episode, and then this episode. And yes, I will enjoy it all when it's done because I'm enjoying it right now. But then, like, okay, when's season two? Oh, a year and a half later. Oh, great.
yes. Yeah.
And that's where I don't like the binge model as much, because with Bad Batch, we've got episodes going from now, we were in like near the end of February,
Mhm.
until like the first week of April. And so,
May. Actually, it goes to the first week
hey,
of
oh,
May.
even
Yes.
longer. Even
Yeah.
great.
yes. Yeah.
um, Whereas, we have we saw this with Echo on Disney Plus, where it was
Mhm.
all what 5 or 6
Yeah.
episodes all
They
together,
just
and
dumped
then
them all.
and it's just they're gone, they're done, and I
Yeah, who's
personally
talking about Echo right now? I mean, the show not being that great was one thing, but it's
right,
like when all 5 were dropped, you talk about it real intensely, and, we're kind of, covering this stuff, and then we're also consuming it, but let's say the average person, let's say our wives, are not necessarily like, "Oh, I have to watch this, and I have to talk about it." Like, it just feels like it's just gone from the
right,
zeitgeist,
yeah,
so,
like nobody's talking about it anymore. Um,
yeah.
it's funny that you mentioned that because you know there's so much, Marvel and Star Wars content where, there are so much that, like it's so much that my wife just says, you know what, Tim, just tell me what's good, what I should watch right now.
Right, right.
Like, because I think the only Marvel series she's seen is WandaVision.
Mm, mm.
She's only watched The Mandalorian and Boba Fett and Obi-Wan. Hasn't been watched Ahsoka yet. But yeah, so it's hard to distill what's good and what's not, especially
Yeah,
when there's so much and Disney and Marvel and Star Wars are running into this right now where they're kind of like figure like, okay, maybe quantity is not so great, maybe we should just be focusing on quality. But luckily, we have quality here with this week's episodes of the Bad Batch. So that's the
yes.
Bad Batch has always been great. I love how because we talked about how they have been, enriching the greater Star Wars galaxy. We've been seeing that, through the past 2 seasons. From the very first episode, we have the scene with Kanan and how he escaped from Order 66. We have last season we had also the destruction of Camino. We had,
Oh,
you know,
man, that was great,
good
yes.
stuff.
Yes.
And then we had Hera make an appearance, which was lovely. So yeah, so we've
Yeah,
been getting great quality here.
yeah, we have really gotten a great series out of the Bad Batch. When it's all said and done, I think we're gonna look back on it and say, "Man, those were 3 great seasons."
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's something that I think Filoni really cut his teeth on the Clone Wars, and doing so many episodes of the Clone Wars and then Rebels and now Bad Batch. It's just like he's just refined it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's gotten to the point where Bad Batch was great right out of the gate. Clone Wars for me, it took us actually I
A
think it
little
took
bit,
about 2
yeah,
seasons
yeah.
for me to say, "Oh, I love this show." I was watching it at first out of kind of obligation and then like,
Sure,
"Oh, it's a Star Wars show."
sure.
Plus back then there wasn't
There
so much
wasn't
content.
anything like
Right.
like Clone Wars was it, and we had to grab it and like this is the who knows when we're going to get another Star Wars thing
Right.
again.
'Cause we didn't know at that point that Disney was gonna buy Lucasfilm, and then we're gonna get more movies. Like, we thought that was during one of those down periods of Star Wars, and we
Yeah,
had this after the original trilogy where it was like, we didn't even know we were gonna get the prequels at that point. And,
and
when
Clone
Clone
Wars is
Wars
a movie, and I get to see it in the theater. I'm going.
yes. So, I was at that time, I was like, "I have to watch this. I
Yeah,
have to consume it," and I think Bad Batch is just like the refinement, like I said, of all of those years of working on Clone Wars. It's just been great right out of the gate.
not
So
only with Bad Batch, but with Tales of the Jedi as well.
yes, yes. Oh
Um,
man, yes, yes,
yeah, that's been
yes.
great, as and that was a wonderful
Man, I
watch.
hope we get more of that, man.
We're supposed
Tales
to.
of the Sith, of more of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the first episode it was kind of the building of the why is Omega special? Why is the Empire after her? What is her M count? And you and I talked about this we reviewed the comic Dark Droids,
Uh-huh.
where you have droids and sentience, and we talked a little bit about, hey, what if there's a force sensitive droid? I think those are the two most interesting things to me right now in
Yeah.
Star Wars: force sensitive droids and force sensitive clones.
Yeah.
Those are the two things that I'm like, I would love to see those avenues explored in Star Wars.
And it's
And
something
so
that the Kaminoans have been trying to do since the
mhm.
Clone Wars,
Yes.
is
Right.
make force-sensitive clones.
Right.
And now with Omega's DNA, they've got it now.
Yes. Which
And
where are they gonna go with that?
yeah,
Because the
and
sequel
especially now that
trilogy
Omega's left.
yes. We and it's the same thing we had with Ahsoka, where when she first was introduced, I told everybody, I was like, "Well, she has to die, right? She either has to
Right,
die or she has to disappear because we never heard about her in the original
right.
trilogy." The same thing right now with Omega, where we hadn't heard of her until the animated show. So what narratively, where are they gonna go with that to say, "Oh, this is either this is where she was or this is what happened to her."
Uh-huh.
So, I think we're in the same type of boat. Either she has to disappear or she has to die at some point,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I just
Or
wanna see where they're gonna go with that.
behind the scenes, kind of like Rex is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was listening to, an interview with D. Bradley Baker right before we recorded this, and he was talking about the future of the Bad Batch, and he brought up specifically Rex, where he was like, "Well, he lasts until Empire. We know Empire's I mean, Return of
Return
the
of Jedi.
Jedi.
Yeah,
Like, we know that he
fair.
has a long, history. He's got a long runway, so maybe these guys" like, he wasn't giving anything away, but he was like,
Right.
"Maybe
You
we
just don't
will
know.
get more stories with all of them." But yeah, first episode, I think, was a good start. Wasn't great to me. It was like, "Okay, this is a nice intro." Second episode, Paths Unknown, we switch over to following the actual Bad Batch of Hunter and Wrecker. What
Yeah,
did you think about this kind of it almost felt like an aliens type
yeah.
of
Like I got a
story.
you have
Yeah.
like the dark corners, but there's also because they're on this like jungle planet. I also got some Predator vibes from it.
Oh, yes, yes,
Um,
100%,
so
yes.
yeah, that
Mhm.
stuff. So combining those two elements with Star Wars was really cool.
Yeah.
Uh, um, they're really, they're really like with these episodes, they're really diving into like what do these clones do now that they're being phased out?
Yes,
Like
which I
what?
love. I really wanna more know more about that.
Yeah, like what life? Like because obviously we've seen that the Bad Batch are they're clones, but they're still like fighting a war and they're on their own front. But and then when they let the clone kids go, they're just like, well, what do we do now? Uh, and Hunter's just like, make your own life, and
Mhm.
yeah, and
And
Hunter's dealing with stuff because Omega's gone, and Omega is the closest to Hunter, so yeah, so he's dealing with some things that
yeah. And
yeah.
I've always loved the idea of Hunter and very to me, and you and I talked about this off mic and off camera. The Republic Commando game is one of the best pieces of Star Wars material and content that I've experienced. The storyline in Republic Commando is fantastic.
Mhm.
And seeing those helmets from Republic Commando show up
Yeah.
now in Bad Batch and kind of making them now Disney canon versus Legends. I
Mm.
loved that. And that idea of Hunter being like this first of all, he looks like Rambo and this
Yeah.
really cool clone that can just go in and take you out. I really like his whole vibe that he has. But with this episode, my standout to me, the thing that got me most excited was hearing Daniel Logan voice those young clones.
Oh, that
The
was him, wasn't it?
Yes, the voice of
That's so good.
and yeah, he was in Clone Wars and I or
Yeah.
maybe Rebels, but he's appeared before as the young clone versions, which he was a young Boba Fett in episode 2, and he's played him
He
over
was
the
also
years.
young Boba Fett in Clone Wars too.
Yes, so that was I really like hearing his voice again, and, I wanna I always like it when they give kind of the nods to the previous stuff and the previous, the prequel era stuff, so that was great hearing his voice, and he did a great job with those 2 clones that you find in the jungle. I don't think they named them, did they?
I don't think so. I don't remember
Okay.
them names.
Um, oh, I'm sorry. Actually, they did. Now I'm looking
Oh,
at the recap. Mox and Stack. I don't know if they said their names
I
in the
can't
actual
remember.
episode, but yeah. The like you said, the Predator vibes with the Slither vines. That was cool. Just something new. We hadn't seen
Don't
that
touch the
type of
vines,
thing.
Wrecker, but I'm totally gonna touch the vines.
I always love when you get these new aliens in Star Wars and
Yeah,
things that make the galaxy feel bigger and not just like, oh, everything has to be on Tatooine and everything has to be the same aliens over and over again.
yeah,
So the Slither
yeah.
Vines, that was all cool. It was nice, like a actiony episode that we got. But not a whole lot necessarily story wise. It was just kind of they're discovering that facility and Hunter and Wrecker trying to figure out more, discovering that there's more clones out in the galaxy that have been abandoned. So interesting stuff here. Did you have any specific things that stand out to you about Paths
Um,
Unknown, the second episode?
well, I loved seeing the Sarlacc on a different planet.
Yeah, yeah.
That was cool. Like when that happened, I'm like, oh my gosh, the Sarlacc doesn't just live on Tatooine. There's other Sarlaccs throughout the galaxy, so that was really cool to see. Um, there was another thing that I'm missing on. But going on that Republic Commando thing, like I'm not a huge gamer, but like I told you, I'm not dead. I know what Republic Commando is. So seeing those suits, and they're basically basically the last vestiges of clones in the Empire. And that's what that has been interesting to me about this show too, is seeing, because we obviously know that, from the original trilogy, that none of the stormtroopers sound like D. Bradley Baker or Tamora Morrison. Um, but seeing them phase out to actual people and recruiting versus um, versus clones, that's been a very interesting part of this show for me. Is
Yeah.
seeing that transition from the prequels to the original trilogy.
And kinda getting, like I said, filling in the backstory of why did that happen? Because the clones are so much superior to stormtroopers, so
Yeah,
why would they phase them out? Like, I
yeah,
like getting an answer for that. Obviously, the behind the scenes reason is
sure,
because the stormtroopers were created first, and then the
yeah.
clones were created second.
I
But
mean, like maybe if the Empire hadn't created clones, the stormtroopers would still be able to shoot. Who knows?
why don't they, yeah, why do they not want better, like, why wouldn't Palpatine want better accuracy and better,
Yeah, and they're
loyalty out
more
of his
obedient
right,
than
loyalty.
people are. So,
Yeah.
short-sighted
I
move.
I think they're gonna try to work it into the story that he was more obsessed with this Project Necromancer
Mhm.
and, trying to cheat death, which that goes back to Darth Plagueis and,
And
like,
Revenge of the Sith,
trying,
yeah,
yeah, so I like that Palpatine's ultimate goal is to live forever, and he's trying to figure this out so desperately,
yeah.
even though he had, lured Anakin in and said that he had already figured it out. Um, and another thing that I really like is there are no Force ghosts for Sith. And so really the Jedi are the ones who figured out immortality, and through the light side, that's the one that gets you that, hey, I can live forever, so to speak. And the
Well,
dark
it just
side.
goes back to that old Sith adage, about power.
Mhm.
The reason there's two a Sith at a time is because there's always the one that has the power and the one who wants it. And and Sith are totally unwilling to like let go of their
Right.
power,
Mhm.
and but in terms of letting go, the Jedi are able to get more power. And
Yes, right.
I think
That
yeah, like
that
that's
Obi
what it's all about. Yeah.
Yeah, and that Obi-Wan quote from episode 4, like, "Strike me down, and I'll become more powerful than you can ever imagine." It's like, that
Yes.
to me,
If Obi-Wan had said that to Palpatine, Palpatine would be like, I'm listening.
technology and the philosophy of Star Wars is always interesting to me.
Mhm.
So getting to see more of that is always interesting. And like I said, Project Necromancer, we got that mentioned in the last season of Mandalorian,
Orion.
and now in episode 3, Shadows of Tantus, which I think is my favorite of these 3
Yes, I agree.
initial ones, we're getting to see Mount Tantus and then the progress of Project Necromancer.
Mhm.
And Omega's blood has a high M count, which Nala Se knew, and she was destroying all of
Yeah,
her samples so the Empire wouldn't get a hold of her. What did you think overall about this episode, Shadows of
I
Tantus?
loved this episode. Like as soon as the Emperor makes his debut, I'm like, okay, I'm in.
That music, oh
Oh my
yeah, the
gosh,
vibe.
the music! I could talk about the Emperor's theme and music all day.
Yes, yes,
I love it. I love it.
love
And
it. Yes.
hearing Ian McDermott, I love that.
Oh yes, yes.
I love that since Disney has done Star Wars, Ian McDermott's been a part of,
Yeah, yeah.
anytime the Emperor's there, Ian McDermott's like, "Yep, I'm there." And it's just so interesting because, he was just going to be a voiceover in Return of the Jedi. and then
His
George Lucas is
career.
like, you know what? I love your performance, and he's been Palpatine ever since. He's
Yes.
Palpatine in all prequels. He's been Palpatine. I mean, Palpatine wasn't even in the Clone Wars, for most of it. Actually, all of
Right.
it. Actually,
Mhm.
and so like, and even in the first episode of Rebels, you know, it was originally the Emperor was originally voiced by Sam Witwer in that first episode,
Yes, yes.
and then then they redubbed it to have Ian McDermott, which makes it better.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
love getting those actors to come back. Like when
uh-huh,
James Earl Jones did the Darth Vader for Rebels, it was like,
yeah,
this feels more real to me,
uh-huh.
than if they get another actor to come in and do their
Having
interpretation
Frank
of.
Oz on Rebels as well, that was great. Yeah, yeah,
Love
getting
that. That
these
was
legacy voice
amazing.
actors just makes it feel more connected. Um, like I think the voice actors in Abercrombie and Tim Curry respectively did great with
Mhm.
Palpatine. I think
Yes, I
they did
agree.
fine, but it just feels more Star Wars to have Ian McDermott. And anytime Ian McDermott talks as the Emperor, you just get a shiver down your spine.
Yes. I'm glad
So
he's still around to do this. I'm
mm,
glad that this is not coming after he's passed away, so
yeah,
this is
yeah.
great.
So I liked that. Like you said, Project Necromancer. As soon as they said that, I'm like, I like when they mentioned it in The Mandalorian, I knew exactly what it was. And seeing it mentioned here, I knew exactly what it was. And so seeing that, the Emperor is doing that now, that he's laying the groundwork for when he somehow one day returns. Uh,
It makes more sense now. It
it
doesn't just
does.
come out of nowhere
Yeah, it's
for,
just like
like.
somehow. I mean, in the movie, in Rise of Skywalker, he does say the dark side is a pathway to many abilities that someone considered to be unnatural, which was the perfect explanation for me. We did not have to have that somehow Palpatine returned line. I don't know why they
Right,
put it in there. It's
right.
dumb.
Yeah.
It's dumb. I can go
Dark
on.
magic, the Sith, dark magic, like that
Dark
whole that
magic, dark
they
science, cloning, stuff only the Sith knew. I'm like, really?
they
Okay.
coulda cut that. Yeah.
Ugh, yeah. Anyway,
But I'm right there with you. This episode was the best of the bunch, and getting more, of that, like I said, a force sensitive clone, number 1, and, like,
yeah,
having such a high M count, that is fascinating to me. I wanna see where they go with that,
yeah,
but also think about the ramifications of that, where Omega is an unaltered clone, right? Like, just
like Boba
like
Fett. Yeah,
Boba Fett.
because Boba Fett's Alpha, and Omega is Omega, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's say whatever happens with Omega, whatever transpires with her force sensitivity, wouldn't that also mean that Boba Fett has some type of force sensitivity or has something related? Because they're both, unaltered clones. And then what does that say about Jango Fett? Like, there's a whole bunch of
Right,
stuff that
right, yeah,
that
and
you can pull on that thread.
what does this mean also for Ray? Because
Yes, right,
this DNA that they're obviously that Palpatine's going to use to clone is going to clone who will eventually become Ray's father, and then
right.
that high M count is going to pass down to Ray, and so yeah, is Omega related to Ray? That's interesting. So
That could be like cousins, like Ray
yeah,
and
distant
Omega could be
cousins.
like cousins.
Yeah, yeah.
So that I find that
That's where we're going to
interesting.
see Omega. We're going to see Omega and Ray's movie, and they're going to connect.
Ah, yes, she's an old Omega, and she comes out in a like a emperor's robe
An
kinda thing.
Emperor's Robe and a Walker,
Yeah. Yeah.
an 18 Walker.
Yeah. So I really like all of that stuff being explored and, like I said, filling in the backstory. I'm hoping we get some type of explanation for Snoke, like
Mhm.
something Snoke related in these episodes because we got so little of Snoke in the sequel trilogy.
Yeah,
Like,
and it feels like he was being set up as the
yeah,
new Palpatine,
right,
and
right,
then, in a shocking twist of fate, he was killed in The Last Jedi, and they kinda had those like that jar of Snokes in Rise of Skywalker, but then that was it.
right. So it's
So,
like,
yeah,
what does that mean? What is the implications behind that? So I really want to see more of this and get more of this backstory because
yeah,
I like when other material enhances the stuff that I've read
mm,
before.
yeah,
Um, Even though if you're someone who is not consuming the other outside materials, it just, "Oh, that was just a bad movie. Now I'm gonna move on," and you're like, "No, wait, wait, wait. If you actually read the comic and if you did this," and they're like, "No, I'm not doing all that
No, I'm not
homework."
doing
So,
all that.
it sucks for them, but it's good for us, Tim,
That's
me and
right.
you
That's right. That's right.
that are
And I
consuming this stuff.
and I love that that Mount Tantus is where this is all going now,
Yes.
because
Yes.
in Heir to the Empire, that's where the Emperor was also experimenting with cloning, and and obviously we have that Heir to the Empire tie with Thrawn, and so yeah, I
I was
love
just about to
seeing.
say, it's crazy how much has come out of Heir to the Empire, like, that is turning out to be, like, the most influential Legends material that Disney is pulling from because there's so much stuff.
Like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
We even got in that scene in the Mandalorian where they mentioned Project Necromancer. We got um, Gilad Pilion, who was basically Thrawn's second in command in those books. So yeah,
I'm
yeah,
hoping we get something like Luke fighting a young Palpatine clone, like, something,
that'd be cool.
along the lines of the Legends stuff. That would be
That's
interesting.
going
I
to be the
really wanna
next
see that.
animated series.
Ooh, now we're talking.
Yeah,
Get
like
get
because we've been delving in the prequels a little bit. We've been delving in the original trilogy. It's time to get into sequel trilogy, you know,
yeah, get
thing.
Mark Hamill to win.
That's how I feel about the comics right now. Is because we had the comic run with Jason Aaron that had in between New Hope and Empire. Where right now we're in between Empire and Jedi, and we're slowly getting to that point where Jedi's going to happen, and Luke's starting to build his green lightsaber right now, and so the next territory would be between Jedi and the Force Awakens. So
Ooh, man, I can't wait to see more of that,
yeah,
and
but
I
this
also
episode
can't
was
wait.
great. I loved it,
Yeah,
and I loved the escape attempt with Crosshair and Omega.
yeah, that was
Um,
great.
and
Yeah,
Crosshair's like wanting to go full out killer mode, and Omega's like, no, we're not doing that. And
yes.
Crosshair's like, but why not?
And that's also interesting with Crosshair, his arm shaking. I wanna see where
Yeah,
that thread goes to, and in that escape, you saw him doing a lot more hand-to-hand combat than doing his sniper
sniper
thing,
stuff.
so
Yeah.
I think that is gonna be very
Did
interesting.
you get the implication that maybe Crosshair will be dead by the end of the series?
I think that
Feels like that's
to
what they're
me
leaning
makes, yeah, it makes sense, and then with what we saw with Tech, like, I didn't think Tech was gonna be taken out, so
Yeah,
maybe Hunter is the only one that survives at the end of this. I
that would
don't
be
know, but
sad.
yeah, I think
If Wrecker dies, I might cry.
he's been a great addition to, actually, I think he's my favorite
Yeah,
of the Bad Batch, so and I think he's a lot of people's favorite, so
yeah,
it'll
he's fine.
be
He's fine.
very sad if he, gets taken out, but I think this is, like we said, just a great start to this
Absolutely.
season 3. I'm really looking forward to see how they tie it up, and
Yeah.
over the course of from now until May, where are we gonna go? So stay with us. We're gonna be reviewing it every week. Some of the weeks are doubled up,
Yeah.
but some of them are just gonna be one episode. So no matter what, we're gonna be here talking about it with you, and we'd love to hear your feedback. If you had any thoughts on all of the stuff that's going on with Palpatine, with Omega, with Crosshair, all of the things, let us know in the comments below. We're always interested to hear your thoughts. You. And I will be back with Mr. Tim Costello, who's going to be joining me each and every week for
Every
the
week.
Bad
Here
Batch.
I'm here for the ride.
Yeah.